Hi, and welcome back to ULMX, Universal Language Media Exchange. Today we're talking about society and culture. We make videos on English, German, and society and culture videos like this one. Today, it's differing philosophies between the American and German work ethic. You may have heard that the Spanish nap in the afternoon, or perhaps that the French are much more concerned with smoking cigarettes and drinking wine, enjoyable activities, than pure productivity. Perhaps you've heard that the way they see things in the Netherlands is that you shouldn't be too extreme because the slow and steady pace is what really leads you to the light of success. Perhaps you've almost certainly heard, that the United States is full of workaholics who take too few vacations and get too few holidays. You've probably also heard that Germany is a hardworking, productive, and organized country. Despite their similarities perhaps due in part to their shared heritage, the United States and Germany differ in some of their philosophies and their ideals when it comes to work ethic. Germans in general see the United States as a country with a work-life balance that's a little bit too heavily weighted towards the work. And Americans are well aware of this. Americans see Europe in general as a place with a better work-life balance, emphasis on the life. At least the Americans who aren't working so hard that they have a little bit of time to look around a little bit. As an American who has worked in both countries, I have to say that these generalizations make it seem a little bit more different from one another than it really is. After all, a 39-hour work week is only 1 hour less than a 40-hour work week. Often Germans will work 9 or 8.5 hours Monday through Thursday and leave work considerably earlier on Friday. It's just a style thing, a lifestyle. Gives you a little bit more time on certain days and less time on other days. So it's really a trade-off, and that's what most of these differences boil down to. Talking about a work week or a work year is the short-term work lifestyle. What about over the course of a career? It's been said to me, someone told me this, they're a German, they said that the dream of every German is to finish their studies or apprenticeship, begin working at a company, and stay at that same company for the entirety of their career. And this is distinctly different than the American mentality. I learned through doing a project on Japan, however, that Japan has a similar philosophy when it comes to these kinds of things. Company loyalty is extremely high. And it doesn't mean that America doesn't have any company loyalty. All I'm saying is Americans have a much more pragmatic approach to the relationship with their company. They do care about their company and their colleagues, unless the company has been very bad to them. But they're aware that they don't own the company, and they're not married to the company. Meanwhile, in the mind of a German, it is actually akin to being married. And this isn't just a mentality thing. To an extent, it's a little bit more like marriage, because for a company to fire an employee, it is very, very difficult. As an employee, you'd probably say, well, that's great. I don't want to have to worry about losing my job. And it's true. As an employer, however, you really have to be sure that you want to hire this person, because getting rid of them, if they turn out to be a lemon, can be difficult to impossible. Germans don't like changing jobs, and it's understandable. It can be a real big pain. But it's an economic fact that the company you're at is going to want to pay you the absolute minimum that it takes to keep you there. Meanwhile, a company who's willing to hire you is willing to pay you the absolute minimum, once again, always the minimum, that it would take for you to come over. And since staying at your company is a lot easier than going, and going is a lot harder than staying, the company is going to have to pay you more to come over. This is the main way you get your salary up. You always get paid more to move companies than whatever you would get for a raise or a promotion and a raise at the company you're at. And Americans really know and use this fact because they realize that the career ladder is a series of switching companies. And if you want to become more senior, the best way to do that is to move to a new company and reinvent your identity. This system is not unique to the USA. Of course, it works the exact same way in Germany, but Germans are less keen on taking advantage of this route. They're more hesitant in switching jobs, and they don't want to. Not only is it a pain, but they like the security of their job, and they like the consistency that it adds to their lives. And this is great for employers because they're saving a lot of money. But as an employee, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. And there are a few other downsides to this way of very conservatively steering your career. One of the downsides is that the companies don't have as much pressure on them to make themselves more attractive to new employees. So they don't always offer the most perks or fringe benefits. Sure, you might get a Bausparvertrag, but you might not even have free sugar in the coffee area. Talk about cheap. But being cheap is how you run a business, ultimately. And a job isn't all about earning money. One of the things that I learned in business school is that the most value you can get from your job is learning. That means that a job is, before any amount of payment, as the very first criteria, a learning experience, and that is where you get the most value from your employer. However, when you stay at the same job for the length of your career, you are passing up a lot of variety. You're letting go of chances you have to learn new things, take on new responsibilities, and play new roles in the business. That can make it so that not only you don't earn as much, but you also don't learn as much. Sure, leaving your job has downsides too, because although it can be really difficult for a company to fire or let go of an employee that's not really performing well, in the first 6 months or sometimes year, there is a probation period in which the company or the employee can simply quit with 2 weeks' notice at any time. And another note on that, with the notices, in Germany, usually you have a 6 weeks notice. And in many cases, unless otherwise stipulated in your contract, you are going to have to give that notice such that your last day will end at the end of a fiscal quarter. That gives you very little flexibility as to when you can actually quit and start a new job. What this does is reduces the liquidity of the job market. Things move a little bit like molasses. So these factors, liquidity and loyalty, make for a little bit of a different environment here in the workforce in Germany compared to the United States. What do you guys think about it? How do you feel about switching jobs? How many jobs have you had in your career? What about your parents? I would say my parents had at least a total of 20 jobs between the two of them. At least, after high school and after college. Counting all the jobs I've had in my life, I'd say I've had about 10. And I've already had 3 here in Germany, and I've only been here for 3 years. What do you guys think about that? By the way, I'm a married man. I love commitment. I just see a really big divide, a distinction between the kind of commitment I have for a company and the kind of commitment I have for my wife. It is not the same thing. And I've had this conversation with Germans and used this analogy, allegory, metaphor, whatever. And they consider it, at least this conversation was like, well, why do I always want to keep shopping around? Why do I always want to keep shopping around? And I totally understand that argument, but don't feel the same way about that argument with the shopping around and searching for a partner compared to searching for a business to work for. As an employee, I'm always shopping around. I have a wife, and I want to be able to provide as much as possible to them, so I have to keep shopping around. The wife is for life. The job is for money. And, like I said before, learning. So we touched on the work-life balance here in Germany and the USA. We discussed that the Americans and Germans are culturally well known for their strong work ethic. And we touched on the loyalty and career ladder progression differences between the United States and Germany. I'd like to know what you guys think. Is there a correlation or any connection at all between this strong work ethic and work-life balance and the career ladder progression between the United States and Germany? Just off the top of my head, I was just wondering, I wonder if the reason that Americans are so hard-working to the point of throwing their work-life balance out of whack, if this extra hard working comes from always switching companies and having to step up their game and try and progress and prove themselves to new people, and Germans settle in at a company and they can kind of relax a little bit and loosen up slightly and not always try to prove and kill themselves, essentially. What do you think about that? So in Germany, in general, it's seen as more desirable to settle in and commit for life, while in the USA, it's seen as a normal, natural progression to go from one company to another and take on new responsibilities, new challenges, and get exposure to new things, seeking more responsibility and more pay. Both certainly have their drawbacks. In the USA, you can get fired pretty easily, but in Germany, the employers enjoy a relatively high sense of security in that they can't just be fired randomly. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed this comparison and analysis. If you did, hit the subscribe button and notification bell so that you know when new content comes out from ULMX, because we're producing videos regularly. So don't miss out. ULMX is the Universal Language Media Exchange. Our language learning app is designed to bring the world together, just like these cultural videos. Language is the beginning of understanding, and the better we understand each other, the better we all get along, and the world is better for it. You can download the ULMX app on the App Store, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to write us on ulmx.com and/or in the comments down below. If you're an Android user and a native German speaker, and you want to improve your English verbal abilities, then we have a solution for you. Our free podcast has the same content that our app has, although you're missing a little bit of the functionality, and you can practice yourself. You hit the pause button and you get it for free. Dieses Album leitet Sie durch eine Reihe von Situationen, perfekt geeignet für die Vorbereitung für einen Studienaufenthalt in Amerika. Studenten lernen und üben hier viele praktische Redewendungen und Begriffe, und einzelne Lernabschnitte bauen aufeinander auf. Englisch für Ich nehme ein Taxi vom Flughafen ist I'm taking a taxi from the airport. Ich nehme ein Taxi vom Flughafen.
I am taking a taxi from the airport.
I'm taking a taxi from the airport.
Ich muss ein Taxi vom Flughafen nehmen.